I'd like to talk a little bit about the concept of addiction, at least from the perspective of a criminal defense attorney who's based out of Seattle, Washington, who has made a career out of handling a lot of these kinds of cases and has a firm that handles these kinds of cases. Addiction is an interesting topic, and first it kind of starts out, the first question is, what is addiction? And really addiction is a compulsive habit or behavior that goes unchecked and is having a negative effect in your life. It's really when it's truly uncontrolled that somebody really is an addict. You can't say no, you can't stop. When you have a definition of addiction like that, it opens up a lot of people's lives to being called in some ways an addict or being defined as an addict. You can be a food addict, you can be a sex addict, you can be a drug addict, you can be an alcohol addict, you can be a pornography addict, you can be a compulsive email addict. You know, it's affecting your life in a negative way. What is, from my perspective, always a little more complicated is when addiction runs into criminal law, when somebody's conduct, they become charged because of conduct. And there is a moment where they have to either recognize that their behavior is either at some stage of addiction or is at full-blown addiction. One of my mentors and people I look up to is my uncle, who's 35 years plus AA. And he's a very funny man, and he's also a very candid man. And once I asked him, what's the difference between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic? And he said, control. And I've asked him about questions about, well, how do you talk to somebody about addiction? And really, the answer from his perspective, having worked in AA and functioning member of it, and this is only one window, keep in mind, is that really you can't confront somebody about addiction. It's a highly personal decision they need to make for themselves, and they need to decide to change. And I believe in that definition, and in my experience in the criminal system, I think that's certainly how I practice law. I don't impose my decision about whether someone is an addict or not on them unless they ask for my opinion. But when you're in criminal cases, sometimes admitting to an addiction, or certainly dealing with an addiction, is the quickest and shortest and least painful road out of criminal charges and the consequences thereof. But everybody's decision to take that road and their ability to follow it is unique to them. And in some ways, as a criminal defense attorney, all I do is try to set that road. I try to make that road as easy to get on as possible and stay on, and when there are mistakes on that road, to get back on. Because at the end of the day, as a criminal defense attorney, I represent the best interests of my clients, and dealing with addiction in general always is in their best interest. In an ideal world, you would want to deal with addiction privately. You don't want you don't want it to be a public matter. You don't want to protect a probation officer or any kind of state agent looking over your back and a judge willing to punish you when you make mistakes. Unfortunately, in criminal situations, sometimes there is no other choice but to go down that path in that way. As a general policy, I try to help people deal with addictions in private unless they absolutely have to deal with it in a public setting, because sometimes negotiating cases and resolving cases requires my clients to demonstrate that they're involved in treatment and that they're proactively dealing with a problem. And with that in mind, I am able to talk to a prosecutor or a judge and get a better resolution than I would without that information.